of course, presented by Chuckran Auto Parts. He falls under the Chuckran Auto Parts umbrella as well. He is a 2019 and 2020 Sport Truck Champion down at the action track of the East Seekonk Speedway. We're joined by the one and only Richie Murray. Richie, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent. So, first-time guest, of course. We've had Crystal on here before as well, but one of our favorite questions to ask right out of the gate. Richie, how'd you catch the racing bug?
Well, I think I've had it since, I don't know, since I started being alive, you know? Literally, since I was 4 years old, whenever Seekonk does their little trike races, back when I was a kid, there would be like 40, 50 kids showing up with trikes there, like whenever we did that. So I won 5 of those things straight and then got a go-kart, and then the rest is history.
So, of course, wrapped up the 2024 season this year in the late models, running the 08 Chuckran Auto Parts vehicle. But one more race here on the docket this weekend. Before we talk about the Haunted 100 and the ACT Tour that's in town at Seekonk Speedway Saturday, talk to us a little bit about your season in review here in 2024.
Oh, yeah. Big bounce back from last season. That really, going into this season, we just wanted one win, and then anything after that was extra. Last season was abysmal, so when we came out opening day and got the win, that all was cured as far as my book was concerned from the rest of the season on that point. So then, as the rest of the season went on, we got another win in the middle of summer, and that was fantastic. And then, obviously, the Seekonk chase system is what it is, and we got knocked out because of rain from that. But much more consistent season on par with what we had for the first 2 years of the late model than what we did in 2023.
Was there a moment in your younger years that you thought, you know what, maybe I can hang with these guys on the racetrack? What was a big learning moment for you?
Whenever I moved up into the truck, I can't remember who exactly said this, but it's because I was nervous going from the Sport 4s into the truck, because it was like you moving from Friday to Saturday, and you go to Saturday and you're racing all these guys that like you grew up watching all your life, and you like, so someone said to me, he's like, you know what, you're gonna move into this division, and you're gonna be like, why was I so scared? Like, you're gonna move into this division, and you're gonna be just as fast, if not faster, than a lot of these guys that you think like that you've been watching race your entire life. So you have nothing to be worried about. And whenever I moved into the truck in like first race, I thought I was just going to be thrown into the hornet's nest, but I kind of just quietly minded my business, and then the rest of that year worked out, and I just minded my P's and Q's, didn't touch anybody as much as I could, and got the championship that year. By that, like after that first year, I realized it wasn't like a small fish jumping into a big pond. Like I was right on par with these guys already, so I can hang with them.
So this coming Saturday, racing at 1 o'clock at Seekonk Speedway, the USNE Power Breach Haunted 100 for the American Canadian Tour. Talk to us a little bit about what to expect this week. Looks like a pretty healthy entry list for the ACT Tour in town. What are you looking for this weekend, Richie?
So I'm looking for a little more of a showing like I had in the first Haunted 100 I ever ran. The last couple of ACT races I've run have really not been that kind to me. The first ACT race I ran, I thought it was easy. I got a +7 in the heat race, started pole, lost the lead going like by the time we were halfway down the backstretch, but we finished like 7th that day after a really good race. The past couple of ACT races have not been so kind to me. So really, it's going to be figuring out the Hoosier tires, and this goes for I think all of the Seekonk regulars as well. We run the American Racers weekly at Seekonk, so those tires are a lot stiffer sidewall. They're a little bit skinnier, and we've adjusted our setup accordingly to especially like the tires and the newly repaved corners that we've lost touch on the setup whenever we go to Hoosiers. So this is what happened. Like if you look at the results from the ACT race in the spring 123 this year, all the Seekonk guys finished like sub 10th place, like not great. Obviously, that you point out like if you point out like a couple of years ago, I think Jacob Burns was in the battle for the lead toward the end of that race. So there is hope for the Seekonk guys figuring out this track. It's just we got to make use of the Friday practice and see how much we can figure out on the tires going into it.
You mentioned the Seekonk guys and obviously the tire adjustment, but also it's, I think really the heaviest laps you run during the regular season down there might be 60 for a Triple Crown event. How does that additional 40 laps here this week affect the car or maybe the long run speed? What are some of the differences than racing here like a normal week?
Actually, I'm going to cut it down even further from that. The 60 laps are only for pro stocks. The late models only ever run 40, 45.
That's true. That is true.
So, we're running probably double, if not more than double the distance that we normally run. So it's definitely you gotta practice the long run as much as you can, but the longest run you can ever really get in practice is maybe 30 laps if you're lucky. So you have to anticipate what the car is going to do. So if you start loose and you're loose through lap 30, it's just going to get worse from there. And if you start tight and you're tight through lap 30, it's just going to get worse from there. So you got to start so you're not too far one way or the other. That way by lap 30 or 40 or 50, and then anything beyond that, because whatever the car is doing at lap 50, it's going to be doing the same thing but worse lap 75, 80. It's definitely a big adjustment. It's also a lot of managing the tires. The Hoosiers are a lot more sensitive to, I want to say, tire abuse just in one race. The American racers, you can beat on them a little bit in one race, and they'll still be there at the end. Like once they go through a heat cycle, then they're rock hard after that. But the Hoosiers, they take heat cycles better, but they deteriorate from laps a lot more. So if you beat on them for the first 30 laps, you're going to notice it a lot more in lap 80 to 100. So the first, I want to say 30, 40 laps, you're probably not going to see too much going on just because everyone's going to save the right front, save the right rear to the end of the race. Obviously, track position is still going to be big because with the new pavement, the track is a lot more top lane dominant, so passing is a lot more hard to come by on the bottom unless you just want to go and door the guy out of the way. So I don't plan on doing that too much, but I can definitely see where it's going to come from, so if I have to, need be. But, passing is going to be hard to come by. So it's going to be a lot of saving your stuff for the first half of the race while still trying to get yourself track position and not kill your tires for the last 50. A whole bunch of stuff that contradicts each other, and a lot easier to say than to do on race day.
For someone who races weekly at Seekonk, and you and your team choose to do a handful of Actor races throughout the year, I assume, how does that work? Do you have to qualify? Do you have to meet some sort of pace, or is it more of just like paying a fee to the track or the promoters, whoever it may be?
So it's more get an ACT license at the beginning of the year. So for this year, I got an ACT license, so I could run the ACT races as long as I just have to pay the entry fee for each one, but I didn't have to get a temporary license. And also I can run if I wanted to White Mountain. Honestly, this year that was going to be the plan. We ran opening night at Star Speedway. We were planning on traveling a lot more, but then we were running good enough at Seekonk, and we didn't want to wreck the car up. So I think halfway through the year we were planning on running the ACT race at Star Speedway. But after we didn't really have that great of a showing at the ACT race at Seekonk, so we kind of backed out of that one. It's just paying the entry fee. So whenever ACT released their entry list, that was when entry fees were due, and you can still put in an entry fee, but it's just going to be more expensive now. So I got my entry fee in before they upped the price.
Gotcha. So, of course, we mentioned it right out of the gate, but, of course, Chuckran Auto Parts presenting sponsor of Miles on Motorsports, but also on the hood of your car. And let's talk a little bit about the partnership you have with Chuckran Auto Parts.
Oh, yeah. So, Chuckran, he's been with us since I moved up into the truck. So, that sponsorship, really, I have to thank Josh Edges for that. So, Chuckran sponsored Josh when he won the truck championship in 2018. And then Josh moved up to a late model for 2019, and Chuckran was just going to stay with him and not still stay with the truck. And then Josh convinced him to stay with the truck and put his faith in me because I've raced with Josh since the go-kart days, so Josh knew what I was capable of. So he convinced Alan to stay with the car, with me as well as Josh in the late model, and that's worked out for plenty of years now. And honestly, he's been the biggest contributor on our car and one of the main reasons that we've been able to run weekly and run weekly competitive over the past couple of years. So huge shout out to Chuckran. We have not been able to do anything that we've done the last couple of years without him.
And let's any 2025 plans yet here for you, Richie?
So I'm going to say this now. It's the same thing that I said before the beginning of this year, but I do want to get around to different tracks more. Obviously, I said the beginning of this year too, and that was the plan until we started running good at Seekonk. So the plans always tend to change, but the tentative plan is run Seekonk just because that's the closest track to us, but also we're not going to get any better on the Hoosiers unless we run more laps on them. So maybe running Star, running White Mountain here and there, try to get around to different tracks that run the Hoosier tires and see if we can get competitive on those so we can make more axe starts in the future.
And, of course, the most important most important question, any sponsors you want to thank and the folks that help you get to the racetrack each week?
Oh, yeah, a whole list of them here. So we've already gone over Chuckran. He's the biggest name on the car. We got Supreme Marketing on the back of the car. Balance Pilates Studio on the side of the car. Jim Hawkins, state rep. He's on the deck lid. We got Nats Racing Engines. Put the car back in, got the car back running halfway through last year after we cracked the head. Sousa Media. He keeps up with our Facebook posts, and Built Right Homes. That's AJ Manuel, who also is my spotter. And speaking of that, so crewing on the car, we got AJ Manuel, my spotter, my dad, my grandpa, Steve Blaze. All of them huge help on the working on the car week in, week out. My sister, my mom. What am I thinking of? Crystal, Matt, Noah. That's all the names I'm thinking of. Yep. Then everyone that comes out to the track week in, week out to support me, all the grandparents, all my family that come out after the track. They're very loud in the grandstands.
And I'm sure they'll be loud this Saturday, November 2nd, down at the action track of the East Seekonk Speedway for the U.S. Any Power Reach Haunted 100 American Canadian Tour Series race. Of course, the Monaco Tri-Track Modifieds in town as well. And there is an open street stock race there at Seekonk Speedway on Saturday. Get your tickets at SeekonkSpeedway.com. Gates open at 11. The racing starts at 1. Richie Murray driving the 08 Chuckran's Auto Parts car in the ACT Late Models race on Saturday down at Seekonk. Richie, pleasure to have you, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a fun time on Saturday.